Are these people like literally on ice or in these preservation chambers? Or is it possible they could be commingled back into society after a period of time and we won't know the difference?
Clones. Yes, there are clones too. Public televisions and the fact that a lot of the scenarios that even are alive, or they are pretty much by an opson effect where they're moved over from their actual inertial hologram. And it goes through the same wavelength to those that have passed. But if you pay attention, their similar nodes of prospects could be hidden amongst society. And some can include up to as time travelers as well.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. And here she is, the one, the only Blue Crystalline Phoenix. Blue, how are you?
I'm well today, Mike.
Great. We got a bunch to get into, and I'm excited for it. But let's just recap again briefly who you are so people understand.
Unified Federation President, an initial code of life, and a standardized commander of the United Space Force Department. The Extraterrestrial Department that deals with the confidential and paranormal affairs for mankind.
All right. So now you're what they call an infused walk-in. Is that the term that we use?
Yes, a walk-in substandard of an inertial mainframe of an extraterrestrial, Zeta Reticuli. An inertial wavelength of many of the other standard waves that go upon this matrix too. There are other fusels as well.
Now, a lot of people may hear that and have to rewind and hear that again, or have to totally digest that. It's hard for some people to understand, but today we're going to talk about some things about the elites. Tell me more about the elites in this preservation.
Well, preserving the ones that so-called were assassinated in the timelines or passed away recently, or even in the past. Main conjunctures are those that were singers and musicians, those that had a lot of power, those that had a lot of knowledge, like John F. Kennedy Jr. and Sr. for one. We're dealing with Albert Einstein. We're dealing with other scenarios like Tupac, which he is very much alive. And they're preserved in an underground scenario effect and also behind the scenes until the right allotted time, when they can come out for the proposal of a better future for mankind. Because a lot of the generics of the holoframes needed to be preserved because they were special and it's needed to have to stay intact for the certain documented type of sealing effect.
Now this is blowing my mind, because anybody who knows me personally knows that at least since 1990s, in the mid 1990s, I had this theory in my mind, and I would tell people that, like when Michael Jackson died, and of course Elvis, and I can go Anthony Bourdain, I can go Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park, I can go MLK, RFK, JFK Jr., and it expanded as time, as I got through the years. But I told people, look, they're all on an island somewhere. Anybody that was worth more dead than they are alive, anyone for the betterment of mankind, that we hold on to those people, those treasures. And people would look at me like I had three heads. And now at least there's another person in yourself that supports that same thing. And I want to be clear, you and I haven't discussed this before, right? We haven't talked about, you haven't heard my idea. I haven't heard your words on this. Okay. So for anybody that's known me personally for a long time, that's the facts. I mean, this just happened. That should blow your mind in my small circle here. But how is this done? How are these people done? Is it through some sort of illusion that we see? Because some people we've seen die, or at least we think we've seen them die on video.
Well, that goes to a backup cover-up story. Like I said, I mean, you know about the deep scenarios of CNN and broadcasting and how they ensnare humanity through their own negative protocols. Well, there are also the mind neural wavelengths of capacitating one thing, so the whole entire population does not know yet upon that certain scenario until the time's allotted. It's a similar prospect, but it's on a good interval. So, like, well, good and negative in a way, because they have to lie about things to hide it, to save in the end. So that type of leeway conjuncture pulls it at a more, it's confusing to humankind, pretty much.
To the best of your knowledge, that's it? These people are disconnected from their friends and loved ones, or are they allowed like two immediate family members, or no, it's strictly off guards that, this is, no one else knows, no, just that person, right?
Well, the scenario with the leaks you were talking about, right? Yes,
Right.
I mean, certain families or certain close itinerary codes to that would already know, but that's like a close-knit scenario. And it's more or less government equation, hide behind the scenes, that had planned this out for many generations. And the assassinations are cover-ups only because the fact that they had played an important role and their vitality still needs to be maintained.
And it just makes you wonder about some people in our lives that we may not know of. This is going to sound awkward, but when I have communicated with some individuals in the past, I try all my hardest to look people in the eye when you're talking to them. And sometimes I got this feeling like this person wasn't who they were, or this person was something else other than what they are. Is it possible? Now, are these, and I'm just going to say it literally, are these people like literally on ice or in these preservation chambers? Or is it possible they could be commingled back into society after a period of time and we won't know the difference?
Clones. Yes, there are clones too. Public televisions, and the fact that a lot of the scenarios that even are alive, or they are pretty much by an opson effect where they're moved over from their actual inertial hologram. And it goes through the same wavelength to those that have passed. But if you pay attention, their similar nodes of prospects could be hidden amongst society. And some can include up to as time travelers as well. Polarity sphere, they're hidden behind the scenes, but there are also ones that are preserved in actual chambers that are keeping them alive, but maintained on such a polarity sphere they're not even awake. So there are two different types of wavelengths for that. And there is also a wavelength into the modulation codes of cloning and being able to maintain clones through those that are on high priority for the entire planet.
Is there a chance then that this same system, these same protocols are used when we're talking about evil people? Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, people that we've been told are evil and we've been told were executed and buried at sea or burned or whatever. And we don't get to see any documented evidence. And if we do, it's probably an illusion. It's probably produced somewhere in a studio, I would say. Is that fair to say that some of those evil people, the same, and why would they do that?
Well, some of them could have been preserved, and some of it could have been hidden from society from the real truths of what's going on propaganda. Like, some of the things like Hitler, for once. He is preserved. He was a time traveler, but he was also inducted out on wavelengths. And he knew a lot of stuff about quantum energies and being able to travel through time. He had made an inertial time travel device. And one of the reasons why he disappeared, or there was a few times for that, on another equation, in the reduction node of passing out, passing away. Things happen. People go missing because they are transacted into a timeline or altered dimension through that, or they're hiding behind scenario, but bringing on the polarity wave in return.
This is this is mind-blowing stuff, and it's hard to get your mind wrapped around it if this is the first time you've heard this or first time you've contemplated this. So please go back and rewind if you have to and listen to it again. And sometimes that's what it takes, because I saw a thing on one of the social media sites the other day, and it still rings true, and I got to remind myself of it. It's harder to convince people they've been fooled than just them being fooled themselves. So it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince somebody they've been fooled. So I think that's what's going on with what we talked about in last episode with the control of the media, the neural mind control, and what we're talking about here, and with this concept of these elites being still alive somewhere. It makes you wonder what other secrets are being kept from us. What other things don't we know? I mean, I'm sure that's a rhetorical question in a way, but what do you think? What are some of the things we don't know yet?
Well, recapping on the equation of the Adara and Donald Trump and what he had planned in Ecofission between Area 51 and the Federation, including the species of a dying race between mankind, humans, and these certain greys, these certain Furons. And an exception was played out behind the scenes. And similar prospects I've announced about underground DUMBS on the last show, and with these type of beings. But it also as well goes into the retrospect of the Zeta Reticuli race and what they promise to maintain between themselves and the future generations of mankind.
So in essence, what you said, and I think I heard between the lines here, that we are indeed, as human beings, we are indeed an alien race. We're all interfused. We're all, our DNA has all been adjusted, or no?
Well, throughout the timelines, and if you think about the sequencing codes, the data speeds that go upon that transaction, you think about African American, Chinese, Japanese, American, all these different transaction points, the DNA spectrums are a little bit different on polarity sphere. Like bringing into an exception that Eden, a star unit brought from humankind, but throughout generational nodes of effect, mankind had DNA circuited through itself. Through these types of infrastructures relayed between Anunnaki, between Nordics, between Pleiadian structures, Greys, all these different types of circulatory codes added over time. And one of the reasons why the Bienopsis Fix is infrastructured upon mankind, why they have different colors and why their synopsis effects are different through their spectrum overcode, is because of the DNA. The DNA is a bilateral mix of different equations, set depending on where the polarity sphere was intacted through. Mixed up DNA.
So our commingling now, where it's not uncommon nowadays for interracial couples to produce offspring, is that by design, or is that against what is supposed to be happening? And I'm not talking on a moral and ethical note here as a human being. I'm talking about on the grander scheme universally from these representatives. I'm finding it hard to describe who I'm talking about here, but are these alien species, do they want us to commingle?
Humans have commingled with each other over time. Innovation, that's how they ended up with these different color spectrums and alligator codes of effect. Same things to certain species that the humans have purposely put upon with each other, interbreeding. And generics play into effect because of their circulatory codes over time. Through that by mixing, it causes a negative injunction upon its own self. Also, as well, depending on how the generics went with the DNA, the polarity waves will go through its maintainment code on it. So, depending on where humans are intacted through their own circulatory codes, will depend on where that's going for the future generations. So, by binary mixing codings of effect, over time, they have lost a lot of that sequencing codes because they had initialized that.
So as we continue to commingle and as we continue to interbreed, is that bringing us closer to a species like we consider the Greys? Because it would seem to me when you add those colors that we're commingling, we're becoming more like the Greys, or no?
No, it's just more or less generic sequencing codes of humans himself and perception. Over time, analyzing the Y genomes or the XY genome spectrums analysis ways of mankind, which go through, I believe, the Y chromosomes through males, are going to get screwed up. That's just something else altogether. But there was also the fusal DNA spectrum of it all, which was recently added upon mankind. The negative induction codes over time were pretty much relapsed because of things being dignified on a wavelength they shouldn't have been.
Now that brings me, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say that brings me to my next thing. If we were talking about, the interracial and interspecies and so forth, the same thing kind of is going on with our planet, with the continents, the countries, the landmass. Explain more about that, please.
Well, on trilateral form, we all heard of flat world, flat Earth. We all heard, oh, it's oval. Well, in inertial wavelength, with set coding of effect of the old world structure, it was circuited through a one set placement code. North America, South America, Eurasia, core continent spread out, but still conjoined. And in the middle of that conjuncture, in leeway point, would have been Antarctica. Because if you think about it, you look at the geography maps currently upon this realm that they are fortifying and processing for others to believe, they are not adding the fact that there's certain continents still joined to each other on a lateral terminology.
So, and I'm going to post this picture here, but if you kind of look at that map there, that ancient one that you sent me, that you can kind of see the different continents, or even some countries, you can kind of see them as part of that big group of land there. You can kind of visualize, oh, that's that country as we see it now. But so are we saying that the globe is wrong? The Earth is flat?
It's not flat per se, but there is extensions on the globe itself that's showing. When they mean by flat Earth is they're not showing the perseveration of what's going on past Antarctica, what's going on past all this other stuff. They're only showing certain lateral terms. They're not showing the other side. And there is another side. So when it means by flat Earth, they're talking about what's underneath and what's in between.
Okay, because I can remember I lost confidence I was open-minded to the flat Earth concept, but when I saw the Flat Earth organization tweet out that they have members all over the globe, I thought that was kind of funny, and I didn't want to follow that. So I'm sure there's people that hear or understand these things and that misuse them or what have you. But so we're not saying it's flat, but we're not saying it's represented as we're taught today. The countries aren't all far, or the continents aren't all far apart, and there isn't a giant sphere floating around.
Well, we are in a globe, but the wavelength is there's much more to the continents, there's more added things, and then there's the inner worlds and the underground affairs as well. There are the inner civilizations, it's a hollow earth, and there's the mainframe through that. A hollow earth goes and conjoins into Antarctica. It goes into the mainframe of a certain other portal effect upon this planet. Others don't understand that there is an in-between lateral line of the between lateral lines. The in-between lateral lines conjoins with the psychic awareness or the paranormal accountability for this planet.
That brings me to the next thing that you said, paranormal, and you and I had touched base briefly before, but I've seen this video all over the place of birds and animals and cattle doing strange things. Is that connected? Is that what kind of like what we're talking about here when with the Earth being one thing? Are these animals all connected to the Earth? Are we all connected to the Earth, and these animals are going in circles for a reason?
Yes, and most recently, the reason why they are going around in circles and like birds, even avians, have been just falling out of the sky dead. And I've personally, around here in the state of Florida, it's bad in this area. because I've already bumped into at least 5 to 10 of these birds, and they're warm. They look like just fell down. There's no damage on them. They're warm. You could tell what's going on. And I've already had to initially save 2 to 3 species of avians that were sick, acting funny. Humans need to understand there's a good terminology of this and there's a bad. The bad, obviously, is these species dying off because of similar prospects of running around circles, or the energetic waves of frequencies are causing them to bienopse on themselves and die. They're doing the same thing as humans are right now with these graphene effects. The air, the circulatory structure in the air is causing a negative energetic re-emulation wave through things. Another reason why ones that are not sick but are still acting funny, going around in these circles, that's the positive effect. It's only because of the way the energy upon this realm is raising up. Like the polarity shift, the shift itself, as was written in old. So they are even noticing.
Wow. And you know, I've experienced some weird things in my personal life before. Like I feel that I have like an like there's a certain level of electromagnetic energy in me or something. And I've heard that this electromagnetism actually will literally connect you to the earth. Is that what you're talking about?
It was similar, but also like the ones I say, the ones dying off of graphene effects, COVID, if you will, the bad parts of it. That's cause of an elemental biowave movement structure. And yes, it can mess with the polarity spheres. And the good parts, so like I had stated, are, yes, a higher injuncture of the actual pole itself being pushed upwards, and it's affecting the animals too, as well as the humans. There are 2 different scenarios playing out.
Wow, that's crazy. You know, and we've talked about that in the past, how, you know, we may not see things, or we may not see things right away. It doesn't mean they're not happening, they're not going on. It's still confusing to me, and I want to back up just a bit. It's still confusing to me about what might be going on behind the scenes that we may be privy to. Is there anything you can add to the Area 51 and disclosure that may be happening?
Well, currency is just getting really close. The star unit of effect on recent platform they have proposed online about this trilateral form. This is the Federation is coming into reality. It's all I can say. When it comes to the Equifit and the structure of mankind, Area 51, where it sits, supposedly in Groom Lake, is no longer. It is going to become a reality for the future of mankind on a better retrofit. And only certain ingrading points upon it will. And that includes a total exposure of the ingrading points of return of the beings that have been here since the beginning of time alongside humans.
And we've talked about Trump before. Again, let's tell me more about what might be happening behind the scenes that we don't see.
Absolutely. Donald and Ecofishin years ago had made an ordinance into effect because he is an inertial time traveler from another movement wave, another source brain, to bienopse an ingrading point to saving mankind, to bringing in a saving grace through Space Force and the Ecofishin codes of effect to the reticuli races. He made an appointment through Area 51 and another agenda at the time, years ago, to have this in tune, as well as NASA, Air Force, obviously Space Force, and the integrated points of certain perimeters of Pentagon, aligning into the point of exactation to be able to maintain what really happened and what's going to happen.
You know, we say these things, and I'm a bit leery on some things because, for instance, just this week here, they released a bunch of documents on JFK. And we've already talked about JFK even in this episode. Now, I'm not talking about Junior, I'm talking about Senior here. And they've released a bunch of documents that were supposed to be released in 1976. Then they were supposed to be released in the 90s. And now supposedly the balance of these 13,000 documents have been released. But I had the chance to view these secondhand, and most of them are redacted. There's one thing that's this is a 4-page document, and you flip to the second page and it's blank. The third page has one sentence on it. How is this still possible that these deep state people or whatever, or how is this? I mean, it's been how long? Since 63 of his assassination? I mean, this is what, 50 some odd, almost 60 years later? Is it because they know that most people who could understand the situation at the time have died off by now, and it's the people that they may be disclosing to now, maybe, oh yeah, well, that happened a long time ago, that doesn't affect me. Well, I argue and I maintain that that's where that's where we are able to actually visualize the start of problems. That's where we are actually able to use and hear the words conspiracy theory. And to me, a conspiracy theory is strictly something that the press doesn't want to report on, but that the people know. Have we been brainwashed this long?
Yes, it's been many years. And since TV come into effect for reality, it made things a whole lot worse. Because before that, it wasn't anywhere near as bad. TV is one wide network on a bad mainframe that doesn't need to be inducted anymore. And if it does, it needs to be inducted better and not set on such a bad wavelength for mankind. Because that is one of the things that's causing problems, as well as phones.
And getting back to Trump briefly here, he had a major announcement here recently, and a lot of people in a lot of the news have taken it to the point where they're like, oh, it's a joke, it's this digital thing. Well, yeah, that's part of it. But if you understood and saw the second part of it, he's introducing you to a digital wallet. He's making you understand that you're going to have to start using a digital wallet. We're trying to steer away from this new central bank digital currency, and we're trying to do something better. And I don't know what that's going to involve, but at the same time, people don't seem to understand what is happening right in front of them. Do you feel, yes, we all are going to need to do a digital wallet? It's inevitable.
The QFS system is the digital wallet. It's a transactional effect of being able to have the cosmic credits for mankind to be able to maintain themselves. You put in, you get in when you put in. And you're not suffering in the process. And that includes the medical. Medical will be free. Medical will be something obtained for mankind, and they won't have to suffer or survive to try to get it, as well as food and other substructures. So with this new type of money system, will also take away the current ensnarement effects of the old system right now. Like hint, big pharma, hint, food attributions, a lot of the food networks, the mainstreams, all that.
So, and again, to reinforce this, we're talking about digital wallet. We're not talking about a digital currency company like this FTX stuff that just blew up. We're talking about a way that you can actually hold on to your currency or your way of exchanging for things.
Yep, and that goes to what I had stated about these schematics that deal with what Elon Musk must have to attain to with the Federation. And that goes to a wristband and a holographical module mainframe that would be able to initialize these credits upon its own systematic mainframe itself. It'd be able to polarize what your acceptance is through that. It does not run on paper. It does not run on card. And it runs on something that is beneficial to every single unit upon this entire planet.
Yeah, and again, to reinforce what we're talking about with the digital wallet, this is something you can't come out and say, hey, tomorrow we're going to start this, so be ready. It takes time. We've talked about it before. You can't unload on people because their heads will explode. They won't be able to grasp the understanding. So it takes time. You have to slowly matriculate. You have to drip by drip. Then you can let the flow go a little faster once more people come on board. So again, we're talking about a decentralized system, though. We're not talking about something like they had in Canada, which they stuck their toe in the water. The deep state, in my mind, did this when the trucker strike happened, or anybody that supported those people, their funds were cut off. So we're not talking about a centralized system that can do that, right? We're talking about a decentralized system, right?
Yeah, we're talking about something in a whole polarity sphere that will be maintained and equalized for the whole entire planet. Not something that will just pretty much denounce something else and then pull over on another thing. It's an equalization format.
Wow. I think we've unpacked a lot today. My mind is racing right now. So if you have any questions or if you want to uh, uh, have us answer your question on one of these shows, by all means, go ahead and send that to us. You can reach out to us here on all the socials. You can always leave a note on the videos and so forth. And make sure you subscribe and make sure you click on the notifications there so you get notified when we post new material here. Blue, the final word for today.
Final word for today is to those that are not perceiving what's going on, start looking between the lines. Start paying attention to what certain individuals are stating. Their codes, their clues will help this planet. When they state a certain thing that does not make sense in that literal term, but does, you just got to pay attention to that, because that may very well be an eye-opener to most. Do not give up on the individualities of who you are, and do not give up on your freedoms and your rights. But also know that there is better for everyone when there comes a time for a whole doctrine and planet to be able to motivate and move forward with the entire extension of the QH. And to those that cannot accept that, they must understand that in the ways of old and the doctrine of old, there have been many civilizations, many advancements upon this planet. And this is about that time again for it.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Again, we thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. Blue, great stuff again today. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch up with you soon, okay?
Yes, thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
All right.